The Digital Production Buzz is brought to you by Blackmagic Design, creators of the world's highest quality solutions for the feature film, post-production, and television broadcast industries. And by Shutterstock.com, a global marketplace for royalty-free images and videos. With over 2 million royalty-free HD and 4K video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. And by Otherworld Computing, providing quality hardware solutions and extensive technical support to the worldwide computer industry since 1988.
Rolling! Action!
Since the dawn of digital filmmaking.
Authoritative.
One show serves a worldwide network of media professionals.
Current.
Uniting industry experts.
Production.
Filmmakers.
Post-production.
And content creators around the planet.
Distribution.
From the media capital of the world in Los Angeles, California, the Digital Production Buzz goes live now.
And welcome to the Digital Production Buzz, the world's longest-running podcast for creative content producers covering media production, post-production, marketing, and distribution around the world. Hi, my name is Larry Jordan, and joining us is our co-host, the ever-affable, incredibly handsome, wonderfully well-read,
wow,
Mr. Mike Horton.
Hello, Larry. Hello, Mike.
Hello. We've got a great show tonight, starting with Kanan Flowers, the Chief Mayhem Officer at that studio, with a preview of what to expect at NAB. Then Dan Berube, the founder of BOFCPUG, which is the Boston Creative Pro User Group, and co-founder of the Supermeets.
Isn't it?
I've heard of Supermeets. Anyway, he's, along with Mike, the co-founder of those, joins us to share his thoughts on Sundance 2015 and his experiences at the editor's retreat this past week in Florida. Then we wrap up with Maxim Jago, the filmmaker and futurist, talking about the future of technology and media.
Holy cow, what a lineup.
It's a great group.
So, yeah, really good.
Just a reminder, we're offering text transcripts for each show, courtesy of Take One Transcription. Now you can quickly scan or print the contents of each show as well as listen to it. Transcripts are located on each show page. You can learn more at takeone.tv, and thanks, Take One, for making it possible. Mike, I am so excited.
Yeah, I'm so nervous.
It's brand new.
You should be real nervous.
Talk show from New Tech, and we're premiering it here on the show. Let me show you what it looks like. It's a combination of computer with video generator that allows us to present broadcast quality Skype calls live on the show. It provides extremely high audio and video quality. The ability to queue calls delivers full frame, studio grade video from over 300 million Skype users and allows our guests to watch the show while we interview them. It's like serial number 2. We are excited because all 3 of our interviews tonight use talk show and Skype, and we'll be starting with our first one with Kanen Flowers in just a minute.
Isn't that premiere it? He's the first one to do it. Let's see if it works, folks.
What I was told is that Microsoft got serial number 1, and we got serial number 2.
Really?
And we are putting it on the air, and I tell you, we've been working with it in rehearsal, and it is stunning.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of it. It's really cool.
It's just amazing.
I'm hoping Kanen puts a green screen in the background.
I think what Kanan has done is he has moved his computer outside to Hawaii, and he's on the beach, and he's showing us what...
Why the heck not? We should do that with Dan, because Dan's in Boston, 20 feet of snow.
Well, Dan is suffering from a severe cold, and against doctor's advice, he is getting up out of his near deathbed just to be with us, because chatting with us on the Buzz is that important to him.
Okay.
Let's see. We got and we're continuing to tweak. We're using Wirecast for our live stream, and we've spent a lot of time making Wirecast work. So
yeah, we should actually show another picture of this place. Well, we can't because we need a roving camera, but this is just amazing.
Well, you saw the studio tour that we did last week.
Yes, you should play that every single week before the show.
Well, I think what we're going to do is run elements of that as part of the pre-show, as part of our open. By the way, remember to visit with us on Facebook at Digital Production Buzz. We're on Twitter at DP Buzz, and you can subscribe to our free weekly show newsletter at digitalproductionbuzz.com for an inside look at both our show and the industry. Mike and I will be back with Kanen Flowers right
on
after this.
Skype.
Blackmagic Design is now shipping its production camera 4K, a super high-resolution 4K digital production camera for Ultra HD television production. Featuring a large Super 35 sensor with a professional global shutter, it also offers EF and ZE compatible lens mounts and records to a super fast SSD drive. Capturing high-quality ProRes files, the Blackmagic Production Camera 4K gives customers a complete solution to shoot amazing high-resolution music videos, episodic television productions, television commercials, sports, documentaries, and much more. The Blackmagic Production Camera 4K also features an incredibly tempting price of $2,995. Learn more about the Blackmagic Production Camera 4K that is definitely priced to move. Visit blackmagicdesign.com today. In 2014, Kanen Flowers founded That Studio with a focus on independent visual effects, creative content, and distribution of new films. Along with his co-founder, Alan E. Bell, Kanen is helping new and existing artists get their content onto the Internet. Hello, Kanen. Welcome back.
Oh, hello, Larry. Good to be back.
It's good to have you back. It's been a long time since last we chatted. Let's start at the beginning. Why did you decide to start That Studio?
Well, so, originally we started That Studio with the idea of helping independent filmmakers create original content. I mean, I've always been an independent filmmaker, as you know. I started out as a technology guy and always had an eye toward film and toward creating independent film. Television, I was always the guy that preferred, Sideways over Transformers. So I always thought, it'd be really interesting to help people like that, And so I got into film thinking, this whole film thing is going from cameras, from film cameras, right, to digital cameras. And as a technology guy, that made a lot of sense to me. And then as I got into it more and more, I started realizing that there's a lot of content. There's a lot of ways to create content out there, but there aren't a lot of tools that are really geared toward what I would call the independent filmmaker. I mean, there are a lot of plugins and there's a lot of stuff that you can use, but I didn't feel like anybody was really trying to figure out, hey, let's say I want to make the next, upstream color, like with Shane Carruth or Primer. How do I do that? Where do I start? How do I begin? How do I even approach? I mean, it's an enormous undertaking to figure out how to approach making an independent film or a television show or to kind of liberate yourself like that. And so I got excited about that, and I spent 2 years. Sorry, go ahead.
It sounds like what you were doing is not looking at the individual technology, not looking at the plugins, but looking at the process, that you were looking at a process solution rather than a technological solution.
Yeah, we did. We spent 2 years really screwing up publicly. We created this company called Scruffy TV, and then we just spent 2 years, and I know Michael Horton has seen a lot of the mess, but we spent 2 years just failing publicly to see, how do we even build this stuff?
Yeah, but a lot of that mess we also learned from.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I know I learned a lot. And you're exactly right, Larry. It started out as, how do I do this process? How do I build this group of people, who know what they're doing? How do I enable them with the tools? And for us, even, how do I have a group of people around the world all collaborate? And those are all really hard questions to answer. And along the way, we discovered a couple things, and I can talk about it as little or as much as you'd like.
Well, help me understand what it is that you discovered, because when you talk about collaboration with a team of people around the world, that's a management issue. How do you manage remote creative people? And has nothing to do with filmmaking. It has everything to do with management and motivation and inspiration. There's a big difference between that and telling a story with pictures.
No, I completely agree. And one of the biggest challenges we had in the beginning with That Studio is, accountability. Accountability is really tough, right? When you have people in Poland or you have people in Australia and you're in San Francisco or Hollywood or wherever you are. Portland for 9 months while we shot a TV show. Accountability is tough, but it turns out that, a combination of creating a strong meritocracy where people are rewarded for actually working and then using the right tools. Like we use Trello and Whipster, and there's just a ton of tools that we use that really enable that. It's tough. And I think I think a lot of people try and skip over that, right? There's a massive human component to some of this work that we do.
I'm discovering it here as our business gets bigger and as we start to add more and more staff, figuring out who's responsible for what and figuring out what are realistic deadlines and clear lines of communication is a never-ending process of self-discovery.
I absolutely agree. I mean, and tools are only as good as the people who are using them too, right? And so the hardest part is obviously getting everyone on board. I'm lucky enough that I have a group of people who all share my vision. This idea that we can all collaborate together to build tools for people like us, but for also other independent filmmakers. So one of the great things that came out of this whole process is, along the way, we shot Hero Punk, which is the first feature film shot on a Blackmagic Cinema camera, which was kind of fun. All green screen, which you can see behind me, there's green screen.
It's an amazing green screen, by the way. I've never seen a higher quality green screen in my life.
We'll send him the technology.
I think it's $29 on Amazon. But I'm cheap. I don't think I've probably mentioned that every time we talk. So building all of these different properties, right, like Hero Punk and 1820, and we've shown some of the stuff that we've done. We've shown behind the scenes and we've shown how to. But what we discovered along the way was really fascinating. We discovered that not only were we having to build this process, but also we realized that there were actually a ton of tools that we didn't have and that, in fact, no one had. And it was really frustrating. And I'll give you a great, really quick example. Let's say that you have, which you would if you shot on the Blackmagic Cinema camera and you shot especially Cinema DNG. Let's say you have 120 gigabytes of footage that you start editing, the editor works on, and then you get into picture lock. Well, after you get that 120 gig of footage into picture lock, what do you do now? You conform. Conform is such a boring thing to do and nobody wants to do it. It turns out there was actually no tool that automated that process. There was no tool that took that 120 gigabytes of footage, put it into a common codec, put it into a common naming convention, and put it into a format that you could put on, one. When I say gigabyte, I meant terabyte. You can put on, one drive and send out to people around the world. So in the process of building our own content, we also started building our own tools. One of those tools is Conform Studio, which does exactly as I've described. It's a tool that conforms your footage, and it's relatively inexpensive. We dropped. I think right now the price is $79 for it. So we're trying to build things that work for people and also things that people can afford.
Wow, Kanan, I haven't even heard of Conform Studio, which I am looking up right now.
Yeah. It's just a fun...
Oh, there it is. There's a demo. Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's a fun tool that we built along the way, Mike.
It came out in June. Where have I been?
Clearly, you have not been reading your memos.
You need better PR, Kanan.
Well,
good. Embarrass him in public.
That is
just make him feel like he's inadequate, would you?
That is a fact.
Welcome to the Digital Production Buzz.
Kanan, do you think of yourself as a visionary or as a storyteller or as a technologist or as a filmmaker? How would you categorize yourself? I mean, I use words like, irreverent and edgy and willing to take risks and, killer sense of humor, but how would you describe your role and what you're trying to accomplish for yourself?
Well, I've often joked that I'm kind of the anti-Stu Maschwitz. He started out as a filmmaker and became an accidental technologist. And I think I started out as a technologist and became an accidental filmmaker, which is kind of interesting. But, there's with both of us, and I don't mean to compare myself to Stu, although I think he's a wonderful human being. With both of us, I think that we're both really focused on the idea of putting together a technology that makes people's lives easier, right? I don't really care. I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing. There's a lot of tools out there, and I really have no interest in them because I think that they're impossible to learn. Mm-hmm. And Michael, you and I have talked about this before. I mean, you need a PhD in about 6 different subjects to learn something like Nuke or one of these other tools. And so I've made it, kind of my life mission to make that process of creating visual effects or beautiful music, like with that Studio Atmospheres, or Conform Studio, the thing that, Michael mentioned earlier. I've made it my life's mission to, make those tools easier for filmmakers, because I don't think you should really have to have a giant budget or a giant crew or a bunch of, frankly, guys who are overpaid and sometimes rather difficult to help you bring your vision to life. And that maybe makes me controversial. And don't get me wrong, I love a lot of these visual effects artists. I think they're great, but you shouldn't be shackled to them, right? You shouldn't be, held captive.
But let me play devil's advocate for a minute.
Yep.
I think one of the challenges that brings out creativity is that when you're fighting against a technological barrier, if everything is possible and everything is easy, it's hard to decide which way to go. But when you're always hammering up against a barrier, the cost of doing live television 30 years ago, the fact that you had to paint on wet concrete to do what Michelangelo did, it's that the fight against what technology allows you to do that allows creativity to flourish. It sounds like you would not agree with that.
Oh, no, I think we are in violent agreement, Larry. I totally agree with you. And I think that the part that I think is difficult for any independent filmmaker today, budget is always a pain point. It's difficult. Finding really good people who are talented is amazingly difficult. And then there's this hard barrier, which is if everyone can make a film, everyone will. And so how do you get your voice out there? I think we have, as independent filmmakers, we have many, many, many barriers that we have to overcome. And one of them should not be, how do I use this stupid software?
True.
Well, that's always part of it, but whatever you're going to do, just do that story that I want to see.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how you get your voice out there.
Although finding good stories is sometimes tricky.
That's the problem. There's a lot of people out there telling stories, but I don't want to see them.
Yeah,
or if I
or
do
listen
see
to
them
them.
and they're not very good, then that's where that ends right there. So.
Well, Kanan, let's change hats for you for a second. Coming up in April is my favorite toy store, which is NAB. And I know that you're doing a panel at NAB, but I don't know what the panel is about. And I'm trying to decide if I should just sleep longer or if I should attend. So tell me what's happening for you at NAB, and then we'll talk a little bit about what you're looking to see.
Now, you should take your digital recorder anytime Kanan's on a panel.
A digital recorder?
Yes.
All right.
Record what he says.
I got to. So first, what's your thought on a panel? What's it about?
So I'm doing two things at NAB that are both very, very exciting for me. One is I'm doing an all-day green screen workshop that teaches people how to use, this cruddy green screen like I have behind me with tracking markers and all of those things to create fully realized 3D environments. So I'm going to walk people through a full day of how to do that.
A full day of staring at a green screen? Man, you are a cruel and unusual taskmaster, man. I'm impressed.
Yeah, but it'll change the background often.
Oh, okay, good.
That's right.
Okay, so we got a day workshop on green screen.
So a workshop on green screen. And then the other thing is, you said panel. I can't help but get excited about telling you this. We are launching, at NAB, we're launching an Adobe Premiere Pro panel and an Adobe After Effects panel that is a panel inside of both Premiere Pro and After Effects that gives you ready access to over 10,000 high-quality visual effects, flame, fire, explosions.
It's not a panel, it's an extension. It's where you have your own part of the interface.
That's correct.
You're launching two extensions, Premiere and After Effects?
That's correct.
That is very, very cool.
That's going to work with that studio, all the 10 gazillion effects that you have in that?
That's correct, Michael. You'll be able to preview them, download them, automatically comp them into your timeline, and you'll have ready access to over 10,000 practical visual effects, tons of composed music, and tons of composed sound elements. And we're adding a bunch more stuff, too.
Wow.
No wonder you're not getting any sleep these days. I understand. That's a ton of work.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest challenge in putting that together?
Oh, man, that's an interesting question. Well, we decided instead of going with the old panel technology, which was written in something Adobe Flash, basically, we decided to embrace the new Adobe SDK, which is HTML5 and JavaScript and all that stuff. So our panel is not only lightning fast, but it uses the internet to do previews and all those things. So it's a hardcore technology solution that hopefully feels like a simple thing to use.
That is so cool. Are you sitting there doing the coding yourself, or are you waving your magic wand at others who are doing the coding?
I think I've written one line of code, but,
and you did it very well.
Mostly it's great people on my team, like Bart Walczak, who's actually in Warsaw, Poland.
Oh my goodness!
And different people like that. Yeah.
Can we get a preview of this? Is it up on the website yet?
No, it's a secret, Michael. Nobody knows.
Is it still super secret?
We can't talk about it till NAB.
Oh, then
we're doing a closed beta between now and NAB, and we're looking for feedback because we want to launch it as with the best possible panel we can.
Oh, it's a closed beta. Well, there is something here on the website. It says it's secret, though.
Well, we can't talk about it. So we won't mention the fact that if you go to thatstudio.com, you won't learn anything about this secret. Kanan, as you're looking forward to NAB, putting your technology hat on, what are some of the things you're looking forward to seeing? I mean, are your eyes really lighting up at 10K video preview technology?
Absolutely not. I'm still shooting at 2.5K most days.
And it looks exactly like 10K.
It's hard to tell the difference.
Yeah, true enough. True enough. So what's got your interest?
To be honest with you, I mean, I don't want to sound like a big fanboy, but, I mentioned the Adobe Premiere Pro panels that we're doing in the After Effects panel. I'm really excited to see. I saw a sneak preview, like many people did, at Adobe Max, and I'm really excited to see some of the great audio tools and some of the great video tools Adobe's doing. They seem like they're just on fire the last year. It's crazy. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about. So we're going to be over in the plug-in pavilion. The little what I think some people call Tiny Town.
It's one of my favorite spots, though. You meet such great people, and there's so many cool apps in such a small space that going to the plug-in pavilion is just a must-see on my trip.
Plug-in kiosks.
Yes.
Come by and see us if you do. But I mention them because right behind them, taking up basically the width of the plug-in pavilion, is Red Giant, and I'm really excited about what Red Giant's doing with the universe lately. I think they really turned the dial to 11 on that, which is great.
That's a very cool point. So, what's beside taking a long nap after NAB launches? What's in the future for the rest of the year for that studio?
Well, we're finally at a point where I think we're going to be able to show some of the really cool stuff we're doing. And with regard to the creative content, we have Michael has seen. I showed at LassiePug actually for the first time the behind the scenes and how we put together Hero Punk, and so that's exciting. But we have the TV pilot that we've been talking about for about a year now, 1820. We're about to show a heck of a lot of that, along with how we used a bunch of the tools we've created along the way to build it. So I think this year is just going to be a ton of content and a ton of tools.
Any release date at all on 1820, or is there a self-imposed deadline that you're putting on yourself?
It will be before October.
Good.
Of which year?
Of this year.
Okay, good. Just checking.
It will be in the future.
By the way, on our live chat, which is going on right below the live video stream, Eric is asking whether you're doing any more work in 4K or everything you're doing is 2.5.
Oh no, we're definitely shooting some stuff in 4K, but we're most of the editing and most of the stuff that we're doing with all of our artists is in 2.5. Yeah,
cool.
We are shooting in 4K though.
And one day you'll be able to come to LassiePug and actually show it on our 2K projector if we ever get it plugged in.
It's plugged in. It's
long
just,
story.
There's no power.
Interview me one day and I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, we don't interview you. You're too depressing.
Okay.
One other question before we let you go, Kanan. You've spent a lot of time thinking about the process of filmmaking, everything from management down to the technology. For somebody that wants to start doing their first independent film, and they understand how a camera works, and they understand how to point a microphone and pick up sounds, they've got the basics down. What don't they know? What advice would you give them that they need to understand before they tackle a feature?
I think, the hardest thing, I said this earlier, but I think the hardest thing is finding talented people and knowing how to spot that talent. And I think the thing that is really important, and that goes for not just the crew or not just the crew or the people working behind the camera or around the camera, but also goes for the actors. And I think learning to spot that talent is a real gift. And I think that you can learn that, but I think it takes some effort. And I would just encourage them to watch as much as they possibly can with a very critical eye to see what it is that makes a performance and what it is that makes a shot.
And my advice is don't be afraid to make a mistake. And don't pretend you know everything. Those are the two biggest mistakes, is don't try to be perfect. Just do it and learn from what you've done.
Hire wonderful people and let them do their
stuff.
stuff.
And you can watch the 100 crappy videos that we released before we got to something that was even watchable. So if you want to learn how not to do it, we've got plenty of evidence out there.
Kanan, what website can people go to learn more about what you and your team are creating?
If they go to thatstudio.com.
That's all one word, THAT Studio, thatstudio.com.
And they'll learn nothing about the panel.
And Kanan Flowers is the Chief Mayhem Officer and founder of That Studio, co-founder, truthfully. Kanan, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank
And
you guys.
I'm going to fool with Conform Studio.
And nobody does a better job of fooling around than you do. Thanks again.
So
Take care.
smart.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Kanan.
Finding the perfect royalty-free image or video for your creative project can be a crucial step in the filmmaking process. And whether it's for your website, publication, or video segment, the experts at Shutterstock.com can help you choose from over 2 million royalty-free HD and 4K stock video clips, including time-lapses, aerials, green screens, and model-released clips. Sourcing over 12,000 brand new video clips each week, Shutterstock consistently offers the highest quality stills and video clips from professional filmmakers. Plus, Shutterstock provides sophisticated search engine tools so you can search and drill down by category, clip resolution, contributor name, and more. Also, use their great no-risk try-before-you-buy options so you can see how their clips will look in your project before making a single purchase. Try Shutterstock today. Sign up for a free account. No credit card is needed. And as an added bonus to you, enter promo code BUZZ2014 before December 31st to receive 25% off any footage package. Discover Shutterstock.com. That's Shutterstock.com. Dan Berube is the founder of the Boston Creative Pro User Group. He's also the co-producer with our own Mr. Mike Horton of the world-famous Supermeets and longtime recurring guest on the BuZZ. Hello, Dan. Welcome back. And in spite, by the way, of a mean cold, he is standing up to chat with us today.
And he's got 50 feet of snow outside, I'm assuming.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
How are you, Larry? How are you, Mike?
Hi, Dan.
It's 80 degrees outside, and Mike and I are in air-conditioned studios. I just want you to know we're thinking about you.
Yeah, it's going to be 90 degrees tomorrow.
Thank you. Rub it in. I don't know how useful I'm going to be during this next 10 minutes because I am so full of medicine that you would not believe. But I finally got rid of the hoarse voice. I'm just excited to be back and to go from Daytona, beautiful Daytona, back to over 4 feet of snow here in Waltham. With another blizzard happening this weekend.
Oh, I know. It's incredible.
If it's Monday, it's got to be a blizzard.
Have you seen the pictures?
I know.
I mean, the pictures
phenomenal.
are just incredible.
What you don't understand is Dan is not in his house. He's inside a snowdrift that he's been able to furnish.
Yeah, it's pretty warm in here. I'll tell you, it brings me back to my childhood because we used to do the snowbanks and build Eskimo huts and whatnot, but I don't have to worry because I got tiny houses in the front of my yard that people are living in. I like it.
Dan,
I want to know how the dogs can go outside.
Before Mike gets his mucklucks on and heads out to say hi, you were just at Sundance, and I wanted to get your take on what was happening there. What were you doing at Sundance?
I was. I was there basically working with Emerson College, sponsoring a couple of the 6 female student filmmakers that were there for the program, for the festival, in tandem with Creative Mind Group. And Creative Mind Group does programs in Sundance, in Berlin, and in Cannes. So it's basically building up their experience as filmmakers at the festival to give them, enabling, presence at the festival. So I was there. I was actually rooming with your next guest, Maxim Jago. So I get to say that I slept with Maxim at
cool.
Sundance.
We'll start the interview out like that.
You may say that. He may not want you to say it. However, there's a difference there. So what was your takeaway from Sundance? What's the highlight that you remember?
Well, this was the first festival at Sundance for me. So I went there with accreditation pass. That was like $200. The festival pass is like $3.5 million. So I couldn't afford it. So I didn't see any films there. But what I did see with a lot of filmmakers and went to a lot of networking events and got to stand in line outside at overcapacity crowds. My favorite part was just meeting people and filmmakers and having conversations with them, because there's a lot of breaks and a lot of places so you could just sit and hang. And it's really interesting to see the type of filmmaker that's at Sundance. I did speak. I presented with Maxim at the HP Sundance House on the Tuesday there, and that was interesting. And there was a good crowd there, so that we got to talk about basically enabling technologies. And Maxim approached it to me in conversation where what happened to me, how did I get started in filmmaking in the past, and we talked about the present, and then went and pontificated and prognosticated about the future. So that was a good hour with him there. I went to the Kanen Creative Studio. I went to the New Frontiers Pavilion. Was amazing because it was all virtual reality, and there were several different exhibits. And I'm telling you, where the technology is going is incredible. What's happening?
I mean, that VR was covered huge in all the trade papers, and it was 4K was the buzz last year. VR is the buzz this year. And it's and there's doing some astounding things. I wish I could have seen that, Dan.
Do you think?
Well, maybe we'll get to do it at a Supermeet.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do that. I know Ted Shilowitz is very into it, and a lot of Oculus Rift, of course, you hear all about.
But 3 years ago it was 3D. Last year it's 4K. Now it's VR. Is it one of those things that's going to appear for show and disappear?
Again, you don't know, but it's just really cool technology right now. So you don't know exactly where it's going to go, but it looks like, and they're doing narrative stuff. They're doing They won't do feature films on these things.
They absolutely
they maybe will.
They absolutely will do. I mean, let's take it. It started this year with Oculus Rift showing Interstellar, where some of the film was presented using the Oculus Rift. That was at the DC, the Smithsonian Institution and whatnot. So that's just a glimpse of what can happen. But there were exhibits where people from actually, two Emerson graduates, the Daniels, they were music video directors. They did a series of videos that were interactive that had multiple endings, and you just pressed a button, touchscreen, and just basically, flowed with the story and with the mood and the feeling. That was incredible. There was a bird exhibit where you lay on a table and you strap yourself into wings and you put the Rift goggles on you, and you start basically, moving around and flying over San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
I didn't get to do that because I'll tell you honestly, that was in a darkened room, and that was after one of the big parties that we went to. We were basically out until 5:30, 6 o'clock every day, every morning. So I think if I had done that exhibit, there would probably be some tactile response from me on the floor.
Dan, as you look at it, Sundance is really the intersection of technology with creativity. How is creativity changing due to the impact of changes in technology?
Well, I'll tell you, I can speak from my point of view. I was there while also promoting a film that I've just worked on called The Chain, which is based on an original story by Tobias Wolff. And I held it, I don't know if you can see this, but I held it on this USB keychain.
Yep, we see it.
I was giving out a ton of these to film festival organizers and filmmakers and reviewers that were interested. For me, enabling technologies today, I think XML has a lot to do with it. Being able to work in a fashion with the software now, I created with Adobe Creative Cloud, and basically had a team of people who are like-minded that you can depend, just like Kanan was talking about in making a feature film, identifying people that you want to work with. And they all had, different strengths. I cut the film, stayed in the MXF codec throughout the process because we shot in the Canon C300. That's 1920 by 1080. and then handed off XML to the colorist Rob Bissett, to the visual effects artist Tim Montgomery, who worked on an HP system, a PC-based system on After Effects and Flame. We were able to traditionally now. Honestly, I think that Hollywood's in the past for today's filmmakers, because we're now able to do things like not worry so much about picture lock, and that was important for Noel, the director, and I, because we wanted to be able to make minute changes throughout the process. We involved the sound designer and the composer early on in the process. We didn't wait until picture lock to be able to pass that off to them. So that, and I was conforming in ProRes 4444 while the footage was graded, and then while Tim Montgomery was still working on the visual effects, and we were still feeding iterations of the soundtrack into the film and timeline. I think, that to me was incredible for the experience of the film, and just an indication of where you're going to see this. I mean, I'm just scratching the surface, and we can't talk about this in the 10 minutes that we have. But the future. I think storytelling is evolving across the medium. George Lucas talked about the super take.
Well, Dan, what we'll do is we'll invite you back, because this could
there's a
easily
lot
lead
more
into
to talk
about another hour.
There's way too much.
And Dan's film is going to be in D.C. here in 2 weeks.
Excellent. Called The Chain. And where can people go to learn more about you? Dan, quickly, what website?
Yes, thechainfilm.com.
Thechainfilm.com and the BOFCPUG, BOFCPUG.org for his user group. Dan, thanks for joining us.
Bye, Dan.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon.
When you're working with media, one thing is essential. Your computer needs peak performance. However, when it comes to upgrading your Mac, there are so many different options to choose from that the process can be confusing. That's why Otherworld Computing carries the best upgrades that lets your computer performance and storage grow as your needs grow. Since 1988, OWC has become one of the most trusted names in quality hardware and comprehensive support to the worldwide computer industry. With an extensive online catalog of Mac, iPhone, and iPad enhancement products, as well as a dedicated team of knowledgeable experts providing first-rate tech support, OWC has everything you need to take your current system to the next level. Whether you need to maximize your system's memory, add blazing speed, or enhance reliability, look no further than the friendly experts at OWC. Learn more by visiting macsales.com today. That's macsales.com.
Maxim Jago is a film director, a screenwriter, and an author who splits his time between filmmaking and speaking as a futurist. He's a regular speaker at media technology conferences, film festivals, and events that celebrate creativity. He's also the innovation officer at filmdo.com and a mentor for new filmmakers. Hello, Maxim. Welcome.
Hello. How are you?
Hello, Maxim.
We are doing great. I was just reflecting that you travel the world as an expert on behalf of companies like Adobe. So my first question is, where in the world are you today?
That's a good question.
Where am I?
Right now, I'm in Athens, Georgia. I've just been speaking at the Georgia University, at the Grady College, giving some presentations to the students here about, if you like, more like the philosophy of film, some communication techniques, networking tips, so when they graduate, they can meet people and give more than they take. And just speaking about the techniques I've learned over the course of making the 50 or so films that I've worked on. So it's been a pleasure. And just before that, as you heard there, I was with Dan Berube at the Editor's Retreat, which in Daytona, which was wonderful. And before that, I've relocated to New York now, so I'm having my Englishman in New York experience. I have an apartment a couple of blocks from Times Square, which is great. Wow. So I had about 4 days at home, and before that, of course, was Sundance. And Dan and I shared a room. It's very difficult to get accommodation during Sundance. It's easy to get stuff out of town, but difficult to get it in walking distance. We managed to get a twin room that was just perfect. Not the Ritz, but it did let us participate in the festival. And then I think before that, I was in New York briefly. And before that, I had a trip that was, I was speaking at the Dubai Festival. And I was
you can
in London,
stop now. I'm
Vegas.
getting tired just listening to the itinerary.
Quite frankly, I want to be.
I don't have a time zone
Maxim.
anymore.
I want to go to those places. I want to go to Dubai. I want to go to Sundance.
Oh, we got to go to Iceland. Go to Iceland. Listen.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
The official photographer for the tourist board there, a guy called Ragnar, and he'll take you around. It's beautiful.
What was it that got you interested in technology in the first place? I mean, you specialize in trying to figure out what's happening in the future, but what was it that caught your eye back when you were so young?
Well, when I was a child, that's a great question. When I was a child, I was raised by intellectual hippies. It's a bit like being raised by wolves, but with more intellectual debate. And I remember my mother, she would go to what we call in the UK jumble sales. I don't know what you call them here, you know, people selling bric-a-brac and junk and stuff. And she would give my brother and I all kinds of toys, and we would take them all to pieces. It would be a birthday present to give me an old gas meter and a wrench and a couple of screwdrivers to take it to pieces. And I just became it's a kind of obsession to understand how things work. In fact, when I got to 11, with some hubris, I think, I sort of figured, well, I think I kind of understand technology now. I want to understand everything else. And I read a beautiful book by an American author called Richard Bach. He's famous for writing Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
Mm-hmm. And all the hippies were reading it at that time.
Sorry, what's that?
I said all the hippies were reading it at that time.
Yes. Well, I read it, and I was so excited to have found another human being that was asking these questions about why are we here and what do we know and what is reality. And in the book, he draws this beautiful analogy between reality and film. He says that choosing to be born is a bit like choosing to go to the cinema, where all kinds of experiences happen, and if souls exist, then they know that it's fake, but of course the characters on the screen don't, and they're really having the experience. And I was so moved by this, his description of reality as a kind of illusion and the parallel with film. It's one of the major reasons I became a filmmaker. And I began studying life at the university and everything. I wanted to understand everything, basically. And what I've concluded is the older I get, the more I realize I have no idea. I think Socrates was right. We're all winging it. And but as long as we can get along, we can have fun along the way.
Did you ever, at any time, I know you like to tell your stories visually, but do you ever try to write a book?
Yeah, I did actually. I wrote a novella, which is the rewrite is in the works. I have about 50 projects.
Yeah, sure.
I had this rationalization of my projects a few years ago, where I looked at how long I thought I was likely to live and just struck some things off the list, because I realized that life is short, and I think that. You get those bits of advice when you're a kid, and you realize that they're right when you're older, and it kind of makes you grumpy because you wish you'd realized it sooner. And one of the bits of advice I heard was that the secret of life is to find out what you love and to do that. And you'll always find a way to make money. You'll always sustain yourself if you really love whatever it is. My obsession, my catnip is communication. But I love philosophy. I'm writing a metaphysics PhD, which is killing me. It's going to take forever.
Are you serious? Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So I'm looking at, so it's The Nature of Being is the broad title. It's an old title. But I'm looking at reverse. So the basic argument of the PhD is that we're either here by chance, in which case nothing matters, or we're here for some kind of reason, in which case there is potentially a design. And so it becomes meaningful to reverse engineer life. And so I reverse engineer consciousness, I reverse engineer space and time, and I conclude that we should get on with it, because clearly if there is a design, not knowing what we're here for is part of the design, because nobody really knows. So we should stop worrying about it. Instead of having existential angst where we worry about whether we're going to do it wrong, we should have existential joy, because, if a client gives you a terrible brief, it's not your fault.
I tend to wonder why I'm here.
Well, exactly. But nobody really knows. So stop worrying about it and get on with it. That's the gist of the metaphysics PhD. Obviously, it's worth
pretty soon. Dr. Jago. Dr. Jago. That'd be fun.
The thing is, who needs a PhD? But wouldn't it be cool to have directed by Dr. Jago?
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of common potential.
There's your motivation. That's the motivation right there.
I can maybe tell girls at parties that I have healing hands. You don't know.
And it looks great. It looks great on your business card.
yeah, exactly.
I want to move you to Florida and the editors' retreat. What were you sharing with the editors? What did you want them to start thinking about?
Let me see. Oh, okay, yeah. So I gave a couple of talks there that were really interesting. Kanen Flowers was sorely missed. Dan was there. We had some real greats there. One of the talks I gave was just a straight up masterclass on Premiere Pro. So I write the costume in a book for Premiere Pro. I record the official training for it. So I'm supposed to know what I'm talking about. And I think increasingly Premiere Pro is becoming a bit like Photoshop in that. Apparently they have an interview question at Adobe for the Photoshop team where they say, do you think you totally know Photoshop? And if you say yes, you fail. Because nobody totally knows Photoshop. And Premiere Pro is definitely moving in that direction. But I showed some of the really advanced techniques, some of the stuff that particularly people who've self-trained might have missed, just things that might have bugged you about the application that you just didn't realize there was a tick box that made it perfect. And some more advanced compositing features and project browsing, that kind of thing. But for me, the really interesting presentation that I gave was about communication. My passion, my absolute passion is communication. And I've spent many years studying it informally. So I gave a presentation about really advanced techniques for achieving the maximum transfer of understanding from one brain to another, but also dealing with conflict. So there's an amazing book that I think should be required reading at school called Nonviolent Communication. I think it might be a guy called Marshall Rosenberg. I might have that wrong. And it's about conveying information without adding judgment. And it turns out that we do this all the time. And so
wait, just say that again. Conveying information without adding judgment. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. So without me telling you what you are, or without me telling you why you did something. So the classic example for conflict management would be, we're having a discussion and you start shouting. Now, I could say you're being aggressive, but then I'm telling you who you are. I'm telling you what you are. And that's bound to annoy you. That's not going to help. But if I say, it's making it difficult for me to think because you've raised your voice, I'm not saying why you've raised your voice. I'm not saying what I think about you raising your voice. I'm describing my personal experience and something that is probably not in dispute, that you're shouting. So it took me about 3 months actually to adjust the way I communicate. And, you slip up sometimes. But the gist of it is that the guy says positive or negative judgment will elicit a negative response. So now that we've got that clear, it's up to you. If you want to have a bad reaction from people, go ahead. But if you don't, here are some approaches to how to avoid it. So I was talking about that kind of thing. It's just invaluable, particularly because we're working in a world that's very heavily orientated towards teamwork. One of the reasons I love making films is that it's not all about me. It's about the relationships I have with the other creatives that I'm working with. For me, this is fantastic. It's all about the connections between us as people. So being able to communicate better is quite fundamental. And you see that, I don't know if Kanan's ever told you about his whole distributed creative process. He has these teams all around the world, and somehow he's created a system where people in different cultures and different time zones can all work together. This is a big deal, and I think we're going to see more and more of it, especially with things coming online like the Oculus Rift very soon. I'm very interested in 360 video and VR. You guys were talking with Dan about that. It is a very exciting time for that. And I'm developing a project that I'm hoping maybe we can work with Ted Chilowitz, you mentioned.
Right.
We're hoping to shoot something in June.
Well, even big budget movies now, we talk about Kanan assembling this worldwide group of people, but even big studio movies have assembled worldwide. They just go into a studio with a big screen and a lot of Skype feeds, and one person over here is doing color, one is the sound, and they can be on the stage with the composer, and that nobody's together anymore. They're spread out all over the world, and that's amazing. Yeah.
But there's a problem with it,
there is a problem. Yes.
Really. One issue is that it's crucial that we remember that we're the storytellers, and I think that sometimes, especially working as a technologist, we forget that, in the old days it would be a bard in an inn somewhere with a lute, and they would use the music of the lute to enhance the experience of the storytelling for the audience. And I think as filmmakers, we are We are essentially storytellers, and it's crucial that we remember that. You were talking there briefly with Kanan about, are we looking at 10K? I think we're going to top out in terms of a distribution format. I think we'll top out at 8K. And the reason is because of our physical size and the size of the walls in our environment. There's really no point going beyond 8K. It would be retina. But obviously for acquisition, we'll go higher. But who cares, ultimately? Jeff Greenberg gave a great presentation at the retreat where he was showing uncompressed 10-bit 1080, which was something like 2 gig for this piece of video, and then a 1.6 meg H.265 compressed file that on the projection screen, to be honest, it was pretty indistinguishable. It looked pretty much the same. And nobody cares about the picture quality. They care a bit more about the sound quality. What they care about is a story that's compelling, about a performance that's authentic, about stakes that matter to us, so that we can engage with the story and feel something about it. Yeah. And I think this is something that Hollywood struggles with.
Yeah, I think.
And the other thing is fidelity.
Let me play devil's advocate just for a second. I agree that if you don't have a compelling story, people aren't going to watch your film. But there is a point where the technology can make the story more believable or less believable and bring you into or out of the story. So it seems to me that there has to be a balance between the creative storytelling and the understanding of the technology to tell the story properly so the audience doesn't say, oh, they're in a green screen, I don't believe it anymore, and they tune out. Would you disagree?
I 100% agree. No, I 100% agree. I think, though, that, I often get asked, weirdly enough, I often get asked what I think is the best camera. I have great relationships with the major camera manufacturers. I haven't seen a bad picture from a camera for 10 or 15 years. So I agree with you 100% that there comes a point where the technology becomes a hindrance. Mm-hmm. I'm working on my first feature film now, and the sequel to the film is a game that will be released the same day as the film. And the idea is you go to the cinema, you see the film, and we're going to rebuild the world of the film in the game. And we're going to have support for the Oculus Rift and maybe some other VR technologies in the game. So the idea is that you cross the fourth wall instead of the characters crossing the fourth wall. You go into the world of the film and experience it. Now, I agree with you about that level of fidelity where the technology is not a hindrance for the audience. 100% agree. But for me, what's interesting is invisible filmmaking. I want to create an authentic experience for the audience by whatever mechanism. Now, I had a go with pretty much every VR technology available. The new holographic technology from Microsoft, unfortunately, I didn't try, but I've heard it's amazing. Yeah. But for me, a lot of people are talking about, and I do think this is the first genuinely new medium that we've had for years and years. Everyone's talking about the fact that things can go on in every direction. So you can stage performances and you can decide whether or not something happens based on where the person's looking. So the narrative can go in different directions. And that's very powerful. But frankly, it's a little bit annoying looking over your shoulder all the time, wondering what's behind you. It's not that convenient. It's going to be great for games. But what blew me away about particularly the Oculus Rift, which has a very, very fast response time, is a very low lag. And what blew me away about it is that we have a thing called proprioception, which is the brain's awareness of the body when you're not looking at it. So you know where your arms are, even if you're not looking at them, because of proprioception. And it's partly to do with your relationship with your environment. Now, when you're looking at a person, your vision is actually moving the whole time, very slightly. You're breathing, you're leaning, you shift position in your chair, you notice something over the shoulder of the person that you're talking to, and your gaze moves very slightly all the time. And of course, when you're using the Oculus Rift, that's what happens. As you move your head and tilt it and adjust it, you get that instant feedback that feels like you really are there. It's incredibly immersive. So the thing I found the most compelling wasn't the every direction thing, and I'm looking forward to the sports, and I'm a gamer, I'm looking forward to the games. It was the fact that I really felt I was present with the person that was speaking to me. And what made that feeling of presence was just that the picture could wobble in accordance with the proprioception I have of my own head. It's very exciting.
I'm sorry, I was just taking notes. It's just.
I am. I'm very excited about this technology. I don't know where it's going to go. Nobody does.
But let me tell you the most exciting thing about it. It's $300.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in the really big and the really small. For me, the stuff in the middle is kind of logistics. This, for me, is the really small. This is consumer technology. It's $300 for the most expensive, best virtual reality hardware you can get. Google are heavily into it. I was chatting to Trevor, who's leading the virtual reality for Google. Very interesting guy. Guys at Samsung. These people are developing art projects, but the most expensive version you can get is $300. Super high resolution, super responsive, very accurate tracking of your movements. Think about the consequences. There's a couple of ways that you can shoot video for this. One way is that you can have a 360 camera. So it's 16, maybe 22 cameras, and you stitch the images together. Another way that you do it is you use lasers to measure the environment, and you take the textures as if you can do high resolution video, or you can do it as stills, and you create the environment photorealistically in three-dimensional space, and then you allow the viewer to navigate the environment. It becomes immersive theater. So I'm working on a project right now where it's a film based on a play my father wrote. He was a playwright and a poet, and he actually died before he finished converting a one-act play for me into a screenplay. And he hated the rewrite. The play's called The Garden, but he started calling it The Awfulness because he couldn't face doing the rewrite. But it's about a garden, an underground garden, and the entire garden's fake. And there's an 18-year-old blind girl in the garden who's never been able to see. She doesn't know that seeing is even a thing, and she doesn't know that the garden's fake. And the entire thing is a setup. And she's coming of age, and she's starting to ask questions. She's taken care of by a nurse who pretends to be blind but isn't. And her father visits. He pretends to be blind but isn't. And it turns into a thriller. It's a beautiful one-act play. And my plan is that we'll take over a warehouse in New York, maybe in Brooklyn. We'll have a week of building up the set. We'll spend half the budget on the set. The grass is made of plastic. The flowers are made of cloth. But it doesn't matter because she's blind. She can't see. So we can see the lights and the walls. It doesn't matter. We'll shoot it for 2 weeks as theatre. So we'll just run through it twice a day for 10 days. And then, for the third week of production, we'll invite audiences in for a truly immersive theatre. But part of the performance will be 360 video. So it'll be a film where we've shot the film, and then live audiences will be able to come into the set and watch the play. And it'll be the same actors, the same environment, the same story. I don't think that's ever been done. But we'll also do that for a 360 camera, and we'll allow people to view it like that.
I want to be there.
Maxim, where can people go on the web to learn more about your thinking and the projects you're working on?
Sometimes I feel like I should make a website called something like confusedenglishman.com. My main website is just my name, just maximjago.com.
That's all one word.
If you Google around, all one word, maximjago.com. I also have quite a lot of videos on Adobe TV, 23 courses on lynda.com.
You can stop now. We're already depressed. You can just, Maxim.
And I want to go to Iceland.
That website is MAX.
Go to Iceland. We'll go together.
Oh, absolutely.
MAXIMJAGO, maximjago.com. Maxim, it's a delight chatting with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And good luck on your communication skills.
Take care. It's trousers, not pants, but let's get to that later. Thank you. Thank you very much, guys.
Take care. Michael, it's been an amazing show.
Yeah.
With some great guests. And
there was no codecs, there was no metadata. It was fabulous.
We missed cable rolling, however.
We did?
Yeah, we did.
We're doing that next week, I believe.
I wanted to talk about coiling cables.
Well, now that with all these lights and with all these beautiful cameras.
And the new, that talk show Skype box worked great.
Did it?
It was fabulous. Okay. Well, you were looking at the people, for heaven's sakes.
Well, I did. It was in that little kind of weird thing there. But
yeah, well,
I want to see it when you put it up on the new YouTube channel.
It is going to be beautiful when it comes up on our YouTube channel. Okay. I want to thank our guests for this week, starting with Kanan Flowers, the Chief Mayhem Officer at that studio, Dan Berube, the founder of BOFCPUG and co-founder of the world-famous Supermeets, and Maxim Jago, the technologist.
Which, by the way, tickets are on sale. You've got to get that plug in.
Where is it?
Supermeet.com. Or LarryJordan.biz.
What city?
Oh, it's in Las Vegas.
Well, why didn't you say that?
Well, where else would it be?
Man, I have no idea. Given you're all over the world, for heaven's sakes. There's a lot of history in our industry, and it's all posted to our website at digitalproductionbuzz.com. There's hundreds of past shows, thousands of interviews, all online, searchable and available. You can talk with us on Twitter at DPBuzz and Facebook at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Our theme music is composed by Nathan Doogie Turner, and additional music on The Buzz is provided by Smart Sound. Text transcripts are provided by Take One Transcription. You can email us at info@ digitalproductionbuzz.com. Our producer is Serena Catania. Our engineering team is led by Megan Paulos, includes Alexia Chalita, Ed Golia, Keenan Guy, Lindsay Lubert, and Brianna Murphy. On behalf of Mike Horton, my name is Larry Jordan, and thanks for listening to the Digital Production Buzz.
Goodbye, everybody.
The Digital Production Buzz was brought to you by Blackmagic Design, creators of the world's highest quality solutions for the feature film, post-production, and television broadcast industries. And by Shutterstock.com, a global marketplace for royalty-free images and videos. With over 2 million royalty-free HD and 4K video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. And by Otherworld Computing, providing quality hardware solutions and extensive technical support to the worldwide computer industry since 1988.